So Oklahoma is now with the big boys.
With that 6 Point beer in grocery stores.
Oh, man. So I have a story about that. I drank my first 6 Point Oklahoma beer on Thursday night.
What did you get? Natural Light?
I did. I got some natties. You know, I know we're sponsored by Anthem. Great people, great beer. But, you know, I had to buy a domestic beer in 6 Point.
Because you've never had one before to know what it tastes. I mean, you have like Texas beer, like Bud Lights or whatever.
Right. So I was like, you know what? Getting off work on Thursday. I'm off on Friday. Our buddy, Fat Bison Matt, was coming over to hang out. We hadn't hung out in a while. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a 6-pack of some Natty Lights. I'm going to go as trashy as possible with this new 6 Point beer.
Now, how did it taste?
It tasted more like beer, which is good.
Less like water, more like beer.
Yes.
Less like water, more like beer.
Natty Light, a little less watery. So I get my beers, my cold 6 Point Tall Boys, a 6-pack of Tall Boys, bring them home, throw those jokers in the fridge for a little bit. Matt comes over. We hang out on the back porch. It was the perfect evening for some back porch sitting because it wasn't cold.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't hot. No wind. Beautiful out.
Do you have that Bluetooth speaker on?
Oh, yeah. You know it, dude.
Play them tunes.
Bluetooth speaker. Had a little table with some chairs around it. Just kicking back, having a good time.
Have a good back porch kickback.
It was nice, dude. It was real nice. So drinking a beer, just chatting, listening to some music. And then I drank another one. By the end of that second 6-pointer, which, I mean, I've drank 6 Point beer, obviously, anthembrewing.com.
Were you feeling it? You getting a little rosy?
Dude, feeling it. And I was like, wow, I used to could drink like 6 of these and not feel shit.
Yeah.
You know? So we're having a great time. But I have to say, this whole new liquor laws in Oklahoma has caused a little bit of a ruckus.
It's getting a little out of hand. So Monday the 1st, right? Was that so October 1st is when it all went into effect. I totally forgot or just absent-minded, wasn't even thinking. My wife sends me a text like, hey, could you stop by Trader Joe's to get some stuff for dinner? I'm like, sure, no problem. Pulling to Trader Joe's. It's a madhouse in the parking lot. I'm like, well, you know, it's Monday. Maybe it's, I don't know. I pull in and like the actual aisles are kind of empty. I'm like getting the stuff and I'm like, oh, while I'm here, because I saw a sign like, oh, we have the $2 Chuck. Like, great, I'll just get a bottle of wine.
Okay, hold on. What is that?
Okay, so I lived in California for a little bit, and at the Trader Joe's out there, the Charles Shaw wine, and it was called $2 Chuck, Charles Shaw, and it was $2.99 for a bottle of wine. It's actually not bad. It's like, I'll just get a bottle of that, one red and one white for me and Diane. It's $6, whatever. And if it sucks, it sucks. It's $6. That's their saying. If it sucks, it sucks. You spent $6. Go down the aisle, and that's where everyone is. It looked like, you know, in like a disaster movie where everyone's like just scrambling to get like water and like canned food. It was that, like people just on top of people, bottles of Pinot this way and Chardonnay this way. I saw no less than 10 shopping carts filled, brimming with wine.
Right.
Either just random bottles or fucking cases. And I literally...
You know, did you want to be like, you know, you can buy that anytime now?
I leaned over, there's an old lady standing next to me, and I go, these guys know you can get it anywhere. And she goes, she thought it was funny. So I need 2 bottles. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
So
you'll need a pallet.
I did one of those things where you like kind of duck under somebody to, you know, I grabbed 2 bottles and I threw them in my thing. I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. It was insane. And then the lines were backed up, and it wasn't people with grocery carts with fucking groceries. It was people just like bear hugging wine.
Right.
I'm like, I get the excitement, but dude, it's fucking wine.
But why do you have to buy that much right then and there?
They're not going to sell out. It's there.
And this isn't a weekend law.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
not forever
like
now.
Oh, it's on special. It's not a special. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
I get the excitement, but I'll tell you what, I woke up the next morning after my porch hang, and boy, was I hungover.
Yeah.
I wasn't like sick, like shitting and stuff like that, but just the headache, man. The headache. Because as the night went on, the beers were flowing.
Right.
That natural light was a-shining. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh, this Oklahoma boy is not used to this. It hit me. And, you know, luckily I wasn't like throw up sick or anything, because I actually ate dinner for once. That's a good start.
That's a good start.
You know? And
something to soak it all up.
Yeah, slept in a little bit, but yeah, I woke up in the morning, had to take some aspirin, had to kind of go back to sleep.
For a 6-pack of Natural Light?
Yeah, all over a 6-pack of Natural Light. Kate saw a funny thing on Instagram today. It was like, alcohol is magical because it lets you time travel and borrow enjoyment from the morning after for the night. And I was like, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing here, but I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Because, you know, have a few beers in you, you're hanging out with your friends, talking, maybe watching some stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
It has happened.
There's nothing more fun than that. Like, I enjoy having a beer or a beverage every now and then. And sometimes they become more than a couple beverages. You get rosy, you get giggly, you get warm, you start going down that rabbit hole, start having that good conversation. And have you ever been like drunk enough to the point where mid conversation someone's talking to you and your brain just goes, oh, you're gonna feel like shit tomorrow?
Yeah, it dawns on you.
Fuck you, brain, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, fuck it, crack another one.
Well, if I'm gonna feel like shit, I might as well enjoy it now.
Every time, man.
But then you wake up and it's just when you say the same thing either in the shower or while you're drinking that coffee, like, I'm not going to drink for a while.
Yeah, never again.
And then the next weekend, what do you do? Same thing.
Totally.
We're creatures of habit.
We are. And habitually, Boys Podcast brings you an episode. And this week is no exception. A very good one with Jonathan Knight. But first, a few ads. Hang with us.
BoysPodcast.com is a hub of all things boys. There you'll find links to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, all the links to all the things of where we are. BoysPodcast.com.
Speaking of, Boys is available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, there we are. Please rate, review, subscribe, and if you feel like it, hit that golden donate button at boyspodcast.com. Send us a few bucks for Chuck.
You know, the leaves are turning a nice golden hue. Kind of reminds you of that donate button.
It's true. It's true. And
once you turn a new leaf, donate a little.
It's almost the season of giving.
It is.
After you buy your Donald Trump mask for Halloween.
I haven't seen any of those yet.
Really?
I know. There used to be like Bush. I remember like seeing like Bush. Clinton was a big one. Nixon's the famous one.
Point Break?
Yeah, there's got to be probably a really shitty Trump one. You can also email us at boys@boyspodcast.com. Leave us a little feedback. Maybe tell us a little story, spin some yarn. Throw your physical address there on the bottom. We will ship you out some stickers.
Thank you to our sponsors, Anthem Brewing, maker of, you know what? Trendsetters, influencers, great beer from great brewers right here in Oklahoma.
I like beer. I drink beer.
Do you drink? What do you drink? I drink Anthem Brewing. What do you drink? AnthemBrewing.com. Check them out. They're really good to us. Always have been. Save a few weeks. Back better than ever. And 6 Point before 6 Point was cool or legal.
They're the hipsters of beer.
FatBison.com, maker of high quality wooden signs. You can get some fucking coasters. Put your 6 Point beer on there. You can get signs. You can hang a sign that says, I like beer. I still like beer. FatBison.com. Lastly, Champion Vintage. Check them out on Instagram. Champion Vintage OKC.
Yes.
What's the big cartel? Hit me.
We've actually just canceled the big cartel. So we're doing everything strictly through, well, they're doing everything strictly through Instagram.
Strictly
DMs.
through. Okay. Hit them.
You can PayPal. You can all that shit.
Slide into their DMs. Champion Vintage OKC on Instagram. Check them out.
Lastly, thank you for the donations. Thank you for clicking that button. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the stories on Facebook Messenger, Instagram DMs, in person, through email. Your love that you share with us gives us a warm, bubbly feeling in this season, this fall season. It makes the warmth even more warm.
Much like being drunk on newly legalized 6 Point beer.
Oh, so good.
We have a great show today, episode 125 with Jonathan Knight of Red City Radio. How I go? Welcome to Boys episode 125. I'm Robbie Ray.
I'm Joshua.
And we are here with Jonathan JoJo Knight of Red City Radio fame.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
Good.
Thanks for coming over.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to ask, we've been friends for a while, but I don't think I've ever brought it up. I'm sure it's been brought up several times. You share a name with the new kid.
Yes.
Was that a childhood? Did you get a lot of shit for that in childhood? I don't know how I never put two and two together. I was like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. How old are you again?
36.
Okay, so we're in the same age group. So yeah, when I'm 38, when I was, I think we should for sure get this just right out of the way.
Yeah,
right
let's just knock that out.
Yeah, it was, maybe around like 3rd and 4th grade for me that it was like a super big deal. And I had lived a couple years out in kind of rural Oklahoma, so I was a little out of the know, but you couldn't really escape what was New Kids on the Block. So
a little out. Where in Oklahoma rurally?
For a couple of years, I lived like 1st through 3rd grade. I lived in Coweta, which is kind of near Tulsa.
Yeah.
Okay. Small town outside. Okay.
Small town, but then they didn't have like. I'll put it this way: I lived 8 miles from the nearest paved road, so.
So you didn't have a Sonic or anything?
No. We had like chickens and shit. So.
Oh wow. It is off of the beaten path just a little bit. I'd say.
Yeah. My my most memorable time of somebody sort of recognizing that name and like drawing conclusion to the New Kids was these 2 girls that, for the time, for being, 10 in 4th grade, came up to me, and I was kind of I was actually literally the new kid
yeah.
At school when I'd moved back to Oklahoma City, where I was born, by the way. And they came up and they were like, "Oh, your name's Jonathan Knight." And I was like, "Yeah, you got him. What do you need?" And they're like, they asked me what my middle name was, and I told them, and there was just sheer and utter disappointment. And then they just walked away. There was no follow up, and I realized that they were looking for somebody who had the exact name as the New Kid on the Block.
Yeah,
so.
Some sort of tie that they can have.
I saw that on a tweet today. Somebody named Brett Kavanaugh was like, "Man, this is a shitty time to be named Brett Kavanaugh."
Yeah, I can imagine.
A guy replied named Mike Pence, and he was like, "Join the club, man."
Yeah, no shit.
Was Jonathan Knight the weird hat where the hair stuck through the top? Do you remember that? It was like a fedora with no top.
No, they did that?
That was a look.
See, okay, the only like New Kids, I mean, they were huge when we were kids, but I mean, I remember like Please Don't Go Girl, and what was their big hit? Hangin' Tough.
Hangin' Tough.
That's about it.
Like the follow-up record, I think.
Yeah.
My sister had New Kids on the Block sheets, like with their faces all over, and like the super like late 80s, I guess, is when they hit. Was it the 90s?
Like screen printed pillowcases and sheets and shit?
It was like late 80s into the early 90s.
Yeah. And I remember those sheets, and I was just like, oh, those are so bad. And they were like her prized possession.
Did you have like screen printed sheets? I had Aladdin sheets when I was a kid, and I thought they were the coolest fucking thing.
I had the kind of a throwback to last week, but I actually had the Ninja Turtle sheets.
Oh,
and they were like all against a brick wall.
I did also.
Yeah. Loved them. Like
was the comforter like a shell or something?
No, but I think I remember that.
Like a giant turtle shell. I had the Tinja Turtles. The Tinja Turtles.
Tinja Turtles.
No,
I didn't have those sheets.
No, mine were the Ninja Turtles.
I got them at Kmart. They were the Tinja Turtles.
Yeah, like the Ross version. No, I had the Ninja Turtle sheets, and I think when I was really young, I had some Transformer sheets, which was pretty dope. I also had like the did you guys ever wear the 2-piece pajama set when you were a kid?
The button, and the pants.
No, not like. Oh,
you mean like the long sleeve T-shirt?
Yeah, like long sleeve, and it usually had some sort of cartoon bullshit on it.
Yeah, and the sleeve was a different color.
Oh, yeah.
I had some Transformer ones, and they were glow in the dark, and I was the coolest kid in my bedroom. I was the only kid in my bedroom, but it was a great
Apparently,
time.
when I was like a wee lad, like before I even like came online as a human being, like in like pre-K, my parents bought me and my brother these matching Star Wars sheets, which would have been from like maybe Empire, and had no fucking clue. But I look back at pictures, I'm like, I had fucking Empire Strikes Back sheets. Did we hold on to that shit?
So that's funny. That's like the very first movie I remember going to in the theater, and I had to be like, I mean, what year did that come out? 83.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah.
So I would have been like 4 years old.
Yeah.
So it had absolutely no relevance and was way over my head.
Yeah,
in terms of concept, and I still to this day, maybe as a result of that, I don't understand Star Wars.
Yeah,
but I did have a T-shirt that was pretty rad as a kid.
And I never really bonded with Star Wars. And in no way am I talking shit on the franchise. I don't know enough about it, but I never saw it when I was young. So I don't have that like nostalgic connection to it that so many people have. And I've watched all of them, like, in my life, but I've never just been like a Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I haven't watched all of them. So there's, I surely can't have any critical thoughts about it, but it's not my thing. So.
Yeah, honestly, I never saw a Star Wars film until they put the originals back in theaters in like 97, right? 97, 98. It's like an anniversary thing. And I was sick as fuck. And my buddy was going on a date, and his date brought her friend. And I thought her friend was cute, so I went with them, sick as fuck, pretending that I knew everything about Star Wars, knowing nothing about it. And I left the theater going, holy shit, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah. They're good movies, obviously. I mean, I'm going out on a limb here. Star Wars is good. Like, in general.
It's fine. It's a movie. It's a set of films.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good shit out there that I just will never find the time probably to dive fully into.
Totally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've watched The American Office like 8 times straight through. It's like, watch something else. I've recently been watching, are you familiar with Carl Pilkington?
Yeah.
And what's
Idiot Abroad?
Idiot Abroad. And then he has a second series called The Moaning of Life.
I started that where it's all about like death and how it's dealt with in like different societies.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good, but I've seen it before. And you fire up your Netflix or whatever, Hulu, or there's endless stuff to watch. There's always new stuff. There's always new originals, old movies, series, whatever. I always resort back to the comfort.
Yeah. The things you enjoy.
Yeah.
So wait, how long after scrolling do you just like, fuck it, I'm just going to watch Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown again?
Didn't even scroll.
Just go right to it.
Didn't even dip my toe in the water. It was straight to Moaning of Life.
Dude, I can't keep doing it, but I do it. The endless scroll.
It just gets shittier and shittier as you scroll. That's like, what is this?
Why? If you have such this like advanced algorithm, you know what I watch. Just bring up shit I'm actually going to like, and not just all this random bullshit.
Do you guys ever do the like pull something up and watch maybe 5-10 minutes of something, and then you're like, not finishing this shit.
100%, man.
No, you pull it up, and then I'll pull up the Wikipedia page, and I'll read through the plot. I'm like, well, that's going to get really dumb. Never mind, and I'd watch something else.
You know how it shows like the little red progress bar on the bottom? Like that's all my Netflix is like the first 10 minutes of all the new shit. And I'm just like,
watching.
Yeah, I try. And then I'm just like, after a minute, I'm like, either this is like 100% for me, or I'm just going back to my comfort zone.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
This may sound like kind of ridiculous, and but it's worth noting, on this topic, but probably sounds pretentious actually, but I actually haven't turned my television on at home in like probably 4 years. And I cut off cable maybe 5+ years ago.
Oh yeah.
Because that's silly. But then I got Netflix, and I never watched a ton of television, but I did watch some, and sports and whatever, things that I sort of like halfway paid attention to through the years, but I never watched like super popular series that were on like, I don't know, like through the 2000s. Like Lost was the first thing I dug into when I started watching Netflix after I cut off cable.
But you didn't watch it when it was on television?
Never once.
Me neither. Not that, not The Wire. I'm just not up to date with all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it, but it was, as you know, have worked nights over the years,
and then going on tour several times throughout the year. Yeah.
So it's like, I just never got a chance to be current on that shit. But anyway, I tuned into Lost. It was like the first thing I watched. And I watched all 120 episodes in like 2 months. And those are like 50-minute episodes with, no commercials.
And they're dense. It's a dense show.
Super, super. It was great. I mean, it was really entertaining. But then I was like, I started getting like anxiety, like, fuck, I'm just like totally neglecting like every other responsibility in my life. And so I kind of just started like peeling back on that. And suddenly, but it wasn't like a conscious decision. Just like suddenly I was like, oh, I'm not even watching this. I'm going to turn this, this off.
When it just becomes background noise to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long into binging Lost did you go, what the fuck?
I mean, I can't remember how many series there were or seasons there were at this point. I mean, maybe 6?
I want to say 6. Yeah. And like the last one was like 2 parts or 2 parts of a season or something.
Probably in like season 4, I started being like, come on.
Yeah.
Like
starting to get a little far-fetched after a bit. And the ending wasn't, I loved the show. I loved Lost. I actually tuned in and watched it as it came out. And it was like back when the writer's strike was going on, and they would like stop a season, or it was the first show I remember.
Like half seasons.
Yeah. Or the first show I remember where it'd be like, okay, let's just say season 3. Okay, episode 1 is on Wednesday. Episode 2 is on the next Wednesday. Then they'd take like a 2-week break. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I need this on a weekly basis. Yeah. But I did love it. Looking back, and I've watched it a second time actually, but looking back, the ending, I mean, again, going out on a limb here, wasn't the best.
Yeah, it was a bit of a reach.
I never watched it when it was on, and I only caught bits and pieces. Like, my aunt was way into it when it was on the air, so whenever she would come over, my parents would watch it. So I would like peek in as I'm going to get my fat kid snacks or whatever, and then I'd watch like a quarter of an episode here and there. But I didn't know what happened. I didn't know that there was a plane wreck. I didn't know what the island was. Didn't know that they were dead. But then I saw the last episode, like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I liked the last episode because I didn't have any build up to like character background or smoke monster or any of that stuff. The polar bear and for some reason.
What about the hatch, man? The hatch.
I don't know
forget
what
the
that
hatch.
is.
Oh, you
the
skipped the hatch?
Umbrella Corporation? No, that's the other thing.
That's Resident Evil.
What's the other? What was the thing on Lost? There was like a group of people they ran into.
That other like sort of colony or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, there were
can't
the
remember.
others.
Yeah.
Dharma
Initiative.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that. But yeah, I saw that last episode. Like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, they're all dead and they were in purgatory. That's cool.
You know what, though? It's that time of year. Halloween's right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's starting to cool off.
Yeah.
It's a rainy day. It feels different right now because we usually do our show on Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, after work. And it's like, it feels so different to have a guest over on the weekend. I love it. Like, it's a nice change of
When
pace.
the
But usually
sun's out.
it's usually dark in here.
Okay, so this is much earlier than...
Yeah, we usually do it like, evening time or dusk. Let the sun set and darken the room and our souls as we...
It feels good, though. I like this change of pace. But also, speaking of that, like today, getting up, it was cool this morning.
Yeah.
We've had a cool day here and there, but I finally am getting that Halloween fall feeling.
Yeah, totally.
Which is weird to say. It's already like October, what? It's
the 6th.
Yeah, the first week of October, and it's just now getting to be this weather, which I'm fine with. Because, this is... I got that total, like, rush of, fuck, I love this time of year. And it doesn't hit me every year, but this is the first time it's hit me in a long time of, like, I fucking love Halloween. I love October. I love the fall. This shit is awesome. So me and my wife were at Target earlier today going through like decorations. Like, I really want to decorate my house, but I'm also kind of a cheap ass.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to drop like hundreds of dollars to make my house look, quote, spooky. Also, I don't want to deal with trick-or-treaters. And the more you decorate your house, the more you're opening yourself up.
See, I do.
trick-or-treaters.
I do. We don't really have them in this neighborhood. Maybe, I think last year I had one trick-or-treater. And I had my porch light on. I had the front door open, dick out. I was ready to serve some candy.
Yeah.
And I think
Did
I had
you put
one
it in the bowl like
a little ghost. But no, I really want the trick-or-treaters and I want to decorate, but I too am a cheap ass. Growing up, I was deathly afraid of Halloween.
Yeah?
Deathly afraid of it. I don't know if it was like the Christian background
Was
or
it
just
the chills?
fact that I'm a huge pussy. I don't know, but like my dad had this Halloween mask when I was probably like 5 or 6, 7, something like that. And it was this skull with these googly eyes that like moved when he moved his head. And it was like, bald on top, but it had this crazy like Einstein hair in the back that was black. And it scared the fucking piss out of me. Like sleepless nights scared.
Wow.
And my dad would fuck with me with it sometimes. He had one of those like big armoire like dresser things where you could like hide your weed on top of or guns or whatever parents did back then. And the mask lived up there. And when I walked in my parents' bedroom, I could see those little black hairs just sticking up past the little like decorative like ledge, at the top of it. And if I was bad, he'd be like, I'm going to go get the mask.
Oh, shit.
See, now that's creepy.
That sounds fucked up.
Yeah, it sounds real fucked up. Like my dad would be like, I'm going to get the belt. I'm like, I don't want to get whipped. You're just like, I'm going to put that mask on.
Oh, man. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I think once you start like referencing an article of like, I don't know, clothing or costume, it gets a little weird. Like, I'm going to go get the glove.
Yeah, yes.
What the fuck, Dad?
That might be the only thing creepier than the mask,
See, my dad had one of those, it was a skull, but it was one of those like cheap, it almost like the Scream mask, but it was like a skull, and it had, it was like the late 80s. It had like a red LED light in it that just flashed.
Yeah.
You put like a D battery in it next to your skull, which is probably really safe.
With the LED lights flashing right under your own eyes the whole time. Scared the piss out of me, though. So as a product of that, I would never go down the Halloween aisle in like a Walmart or heaven forbid, like a Spencer Gifts. Because the Spencer Gifts Halloween shit from our youth was very scary. It was Walmart was kind of scary. But the Spencer Gift shit was like the head that was split open with like a demon coming out or some shit.
It's before we had Spirit Halloween stores.
Right.
We didn't have those pop up on every fucking corner. Yeah, Spencer's is where you go to get like your legit real deal masks to pull over, get claustrophobia being inside of it mask.
And your fake blood by the gallon.
Which,
To this day, I'm still a little apprehensive of the Spirit Halloween store. I don't love going to them because nowadays it's the motion activated shit that jumps out at you. And I'm just like, man, that ain't cool. When I worked in the mall one year, they had a person sitting out in front of a Spencer Gifts like a scarecrow. And there was like candy. And this wasn't just on Halloween like Eve or whatever. This was the whole season. And it was an employee that would scare the shit out of people. He'd be sitting there with the candy. And when a kid would come up to grab a piece of candy, he'd be like, ah!
He looked like he was like in a Manson pose there.
Yeah,
I was doing a little show.
A little routine for the kids. But it scared the shit out of me. As like an 18, 19-year-old working at Hot Topic, I was like, I'm not going over there by Spencer's.
Yeah, fuck
And you worked
that
at
place.
Hot Topic.
Well, yeah, it's pretty spooky.
It's pretty spooky.
So
bad.
Like haunted houses and shit like that. Does that scare you?
Never been.
Just not into it.
Never will be. Never.
No,
ever.
Robbie, you did go to a haunted house, but it was called the Hell House, the Christian haunted house. You were familiar with those, right? Back in the day.
No.
Were you not? You not grow up under the guise of the Lord?
I did. Well, partially anyway, but I didn't. I never went to one of those.
Well, there was like one or two big churches that did these things called hell houses, and it was haunted houses, but instead of going and like there's a dude with a chainsaw or like, you know, a bloody nun or whatever, it was like different rooms of different scenarios of like sin and what happens when you sin.
It was almost like you were walking through a play.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were huge.
There's like
Are you familiar with these
and,
at
like,
all?
no.
Oh, dude, there's a documentary on YouTube about them, and it's a pretty good documentary, but it was meant to scare the Jesus into you, basically. Like there was one, we went to several of them as a church. I was raised in church. That's where I learned to play guitar and all this stuff in my teens. We'd go to these hell houses every year. And like one scene you'd go in and it was like a kid in his room with like, you know, like a mushroom blacklight poster on the wall, like crooked and like black lights and stuff. And he was smoking pot like out of a bong. And like, so they usher the group of children, like let's say half of your youth group into the room. And then the person or people in the room, they kind of perform a scene. And this guy's smoking weed. And I think he was listening to Rage Against the Machine. And he's like getting real high. And then and he's like, I just can't deal with this anymore. And he takes a gun out and fucking blows his brains out, and like fake brains and blood splatter against the wall, and he dies.
Jesus.
Yeah.
In a church, dude.
That's
Literally,
crazy.
Jesus. Yeah.
And then there was one where like a woman or like a young woman getting an abortion, like bloody baby and all, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if they go that far anymore. I haven't been to one or even heard of having one happen. But yeah, that shit always spooked me. And then you got like the watered down version was like the fall festival, where like for the little kids. You can't have a little kid go see some kid get his brain.
No,
blown
that's for the 12-year-olds and above.
They do
you
trunk
know?
or treat for the little kids.
Totally. A fall festival. We had a lot of those too. The Hell House at the end, though, they would usher you into like the main sanctuary area, and they'd kind of have like an altar call with a preacher in there, like who wants to dedicate their lives to Jesus, or the classic rededicate your life to Jesus.
Rededicate.
And you were so scared, like, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to kill myself. No. And, you know, there'd be people crying and freaking out. And then, of course, they'd ask for the money. You know, they got to fund this fake blood and
Donations.
dead babies somehow.
Donations or the tithe. Give 10% to the Lord.
It was fucked up,
So
dude.
what kind of church was this?
I want to say like a Baptist church or maybe like an Assembly of God. Just your normal, you know, your normal Oklahoma church.
Dude, shit's fucked up.
I grew up in a Nazarene church, and sort of anything that even like mocked or resembled fun was like a sin. So they didn't even like spoof the shit. It was just like, I don't recall anything Halloween themed at all.
That's interesting. Like even something vaguely related would have been bad.
But you know, I've repressed a lot of that, so I don't really know. Maybe I'm wrong.
You
Well,
can't have
what
a
constitutes Nazarene? Like, because, you know, I know like I grew up Baptist. Actually, before that, it was
Pre-Baptist?
Pre-Baptist was evangelical Christian, which was like the speaking in tongues.
Was that probably a grandparents' church?
Yes, and the laying on hands.
Oh, wow.
And dude, I'm telling you, man, like I'm not anti-religion at all. Like it's fucked up, man. You know, of course, everything's fucked up. But like, if somebody wants to believe in God, more power to you.
Hey,
you know,
as Fred Durst said, everything's fucked.
everybody sucks.
Yeah.
But this was fucked up. Being 8 years old and hearing a woman speak in tongues and then hearing somebody on the other side of the sanctuary translate it. After a while, I was like, man, this bitch is just putting on a show.
Yeah.
This is her time to shine. She's got her white diamonds on, her hat, and she's like, whatever, as sacrilegious as I can be.
Unskinny Bob. Singing Unskinny
I mean, it
Bob.
can be far from.
Yeah, it was the Scat Man, actually. He was
Well,
there.
we had a Nazarene church in Choctaw. It was a big ass church, and there was a girl in my class. She was Nazarene, and the girls all wore denim skirts. Is that a thing with Nazarene?
I mean, I don't think that it was like that way. At least it wasn't so much like by the time I was a kid, and maybe it still was in these small towns. I mean, I grew up largely when I was in Oklahoma City, like in Bethany, which is very much a Nazarene town.
Yeah, it's right across the street here.
The university
exactly.
there. Yeah.
But see, fortunately, nobody in my family is probably listening to this, and whatever, who cares? But my family was like, on my dad's side, was super like deeply rooted in the Nazarene church. Like my grandfather, my dad's dad, and my uncle were at different points the presidents of Southern Nazarene University, and so that side of the family was like very involved. But I was raised by my mother, and I was like, of my grandparents' 3 children, like my dad was kind of the black sheep, so, well, not even kind of. And so my parents were divorced, which was like sort of unheard of in my family.
Sure.
So I was raised by my mom, who was like pretty much agnostic. So she didn't force me through any of that kind of thing, but I did spend a lot of time. Even when we lived out in the country, I would spend like summers with my grandparents in Bethany. And so I wasn't like deeply invested in it, not even enough to really truly know what differentiates, Nazarene from anything else. I mean, it's just some other kind of Protestant thing that has its own weird shit.
Yeah, interpretation of this book.
Yeah, I mean,
slightly different flavor than the Baptist or the whatever.
I do recall, like, the thing I remember the most is, frankly, just sort of like the general feeling of fear, which is what really turned me off of that shit, Well,
that's how they get you. That's how they get the kids. And that sounds so weird. Like, they get you with fear. They scare you into, like, you don't want to die and go to hell. Better get Jesus.
The fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
The classic fire and brimstone.
And then you get it, and then that continues throughout your life of, like, now that you're saved from hell, now...
Don't have sex. Do not have sex.
That. You don't want to ruin it, because then he's going to be mad, and you got to get these treasures in heaven. Like, the more you score points here, it's just a weird system. You know?
Yeah,
really
it was just a little odd.
system.
I do remember sort of like going into like middle school aged, and I would still somewhat like be involved, go with friends to like youth events and stuff like that. And I found around that time when I started having a little more independent thought, and, listening to like cool music that just wasn't whatever was fed to me, whatever. I started like growing into kind of my own identity. I started asking questions that I realized were not very welcomed in a church setting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Happened.
And shortly after that, I just sort of kind of removed myself from it. I mean, I didn't go boycotting or
picketing against the church,
it's just, but not my thing. So I kind of backed out of that.
So when did you get into playing music? You play bass for Red City Radio.
Yeah.
How long have you been in that band? Are you a founding member?
Well, that's kind of that's an interesting question. Because that sort of like depends on how you look at it.
Okay.
Red City Radio has put out, starting in 2009, our very first EP, 5-song EP, To the Sons and Daughters of Woody Guthrie. Since then, including that EP, we've put out 2 5-song EPs and 3 full-length records. And I am a part of all of that.
Cool.
So by that standard, by the standard of like any music that kind of the world knows as Red City Radio, yeah. I mean,
I think that counts.
But,
I think if they had a bass player before they recorded a proper EP, that's like, that's just practice.
Yeah. I mean, really, it was just kind of like part of the evolution. So prior to that, there was, though, sort of a close friend of mine, Ryan, and a founding member, Paul. They started writing the tunes like on acoustic guitar.
Okay.
Then it turned into more of a full band thing.
Then they bought amps.
Yeah, exactly. They found a drummer. They found a bass player. They played a handful of shows and stuff like that. And then, everybody who was not really fully invested in the project kind of like found their way out of the project. And then it became, the members that were the starting of those recordings. So
cool.
Yes, I think is the answer. Yeah. I don't know.
So when did you start? Was bass your first instrument?
No, actually, technically I started playing piano at like age 9.
Okay.
And I'm not like some super proficient pianist,
Right.
But
He can play brick.
I can play a few tunes, but that's where I sort of learned the fundamentals of music and sort of understanding kind of the introduction of theory and scales and shit like that. And then when I went into middle school, I started playing trumpet. I don't know why. It was just
That ska band. You gotta get that ska band.
yeah.
Well, was it a reaction to playing sports? Like, were you a sporty kid, or were you straight
not at
music
all.
the whole
I was
time?
a total nerd.
Okay.
Like coming out of elementary school, and then coming into, I think in middle school, I just wanted to try something new.
Sure.
So I got a trumpet. I ended up being, fairly good at it. I think, I held first chair in my middle school. I actually took first chair at state the one year I went, whatever that means. It sounds like some shit that has no basis of relativity, but apparently that was a good thing.
First chair.
It sounds like something at a fall festival, like
Yeah.
at the cakewalk or something like that.
I got
you
first
know?
chair, the pop walk.
Yeah.
But I was a childhood friend of mine, still to this day, a very close friend of mine named Jake. His older brother played guitar, and this was early 90s, and he was playing fucking Nirvana, or
Sure.
whatever, some power chords with distortion on electric guitar, and I was like, what in the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And how do I learn to do that?
That sounds a lot cooler than a trumpet.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know? Yeah. Or a Casio piano.
He sure looks cooler playing it.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So anyway,
Was he like a Hesher type or anything, or was he just like a normal dude? Because I kind of have that experience with
Yeah, I have a Hesher,
Brad's older brother Brian growing up. But continue.
he was like a grungy kind of punker, teenager, like pissed at everything.
Yeah.
Did he have a half stack?
He didn't know. I mean, this was he was like 15 or 16,
Okay.
and I was like 13, 14. So, he had a little combo practice amp that, and some knockoff Les Paul that he played on. But what he was able, I looked up to that guy and was also like terrified by him.
Yeah.
And he could turn on you.
Because he was kind of a dick.
Yeah, those guys
Yeah,
could turn
yeah.
on you. Like, they could take you under their wing, and like you would just like absorb any little nugget of knowledge, whether it's about music or girls or life or weed or whatever.
Yeah.
Or they could just turn around and be like, my little brother's a, no,
totally.
his
Like,
friends.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely like there would be times where I'd be like, hey man, do you think I could play that? And he'd be like, sure. He's like in a cool mood, and he'd be like, yeah, here's how you play a chord, or whatever. And I'm playing along, and then but there were other times they're like, hey man, you think I could maybe try to play that thing? And you're like, get out of my room, pussy, whatever. So it's like I never knew like which, I don't know. And, I haven't talked to that guy in a long time, but I think we're actually friends on social media. So maybe when I share this podcast, he'll listen to it.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, man, I scared that fucking kid. But
Finally, after all these years, he's like, yes.
I fucking won.
Totally.
But no, he actually is, strangely, the reason I got interested in that. Once I actually started, my mom was, at that point, had bought me a keyboard and then, a trumpet. And then, now I was asking her to buy me, some shitty guitar. So she was super supportive. I'll have to give it up to her for.
Yeah, but that's like you do that in each instrument gets exponentially more expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Dad, I want a recorder. Okay. And, hey, I want an acoustic guitar. All right, we'll find a shitty one at a pawn shop.
Yep.
Hey, Dad, I want a drum kit. Fuck
Yeah.
you.
Well, see, luckily I didn't go down that route. My mom
Yeah.
would have been like, really, dude? But no, so it was like age 14, I started playing music. And at that time, I had, I was listening to the shit that everybody was. I mean, Nirvana kind of changed the world at that time. I mean,
95X. A lot
there
of,
was, I mean, like pre that, we're talking about like, I grew up listening basically to whatever was on the radio and just like KJ 103 pop music here
Hot
in
888,
Oklahoma
man.
City. And
It was MC Hammer, like Vanilla
Yeah,
Ice,
yeah.
all
Oh,
that
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And then it was weird. I got into like rap at a young age. I
did
know.
too,
It
but-
was like, it went from like MC Hammer and like Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In, Vanilla Ice, basically anything that was on like KJ 103.
Yeah.
And then one morning I woke up and I was like, I'm listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Onyx now.
Exactly. I don't know. I think Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre
Cypress
might be
Hill.
the gateway to punk
it was,
rock.
I mean, it really kind of
In a
was
way.
for me too, like
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but also was like the kind of grunge era, as lame as that maybe sounds now, but excuse me. But that's why that was the time that I started, guitar really stuck with me. It was like, oh, this is actually cool. And I can figure out how to play these songs that I, listen to or whatever. And so it kind of went from like hair metal and like, which I wasn't super into, but that was popular in rock music at the time. And then pop to like suddenly like in the early 90s, it was like grunge music. And then, so anyway, long story longer, I started playing in a punk rock band at like 14 with my friends and
Playing guitar.
Yeah, playing guitar and like lead singing, and that continued on in various bands up into my 20s, and then I met the guys who were starting this project called Red City Radio, and eventually, they needed a bass player, and I loved what they were doing, and then
Is that when you moved over to bass?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I was always fairly proficient at it.
Mm-hmm.
I had played drums in a band. Okay,
right.
At one point, being
you played drums like a guitar player.
Probably,
right?
yeah.
I know that feeling all too well.
4/4 drum beat.
Yeah.
But so I'd been around these traditional sort of rock instruments enough to get my hands a little dirty in all of them, and so I moved over to bass, and so I don't know. I definitely identify more, as a bass player now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, what do you need me to play? Let's make some music together. So
That's awesome.
As a guy who's started out guitar and then transitioned to bass, I kind of did the same thing. Do you find, I find it really weird sometimes that I can play these intricate bass lines, but if you ask me to play lead guitar, I'm like, I fucking can't do that. It's weird. Do you feel the same way?
I'm certainly not going to just like rip one out just on the fly.
Yeah.
Like, hey, hand me a guitar, and suddenly like, I'm Stevie Ray Vaughaning over here.
Right.
But I can.
It seems easier to do that on bass than maybe you got 4 strings,
It's just your calling, man.
I get maybe so.
I'm certainly better at bass, like at this point in my life. But I still play guitar sometimes, not as often as I should, but I go through phases where, I'll sit around and just like strum on an acoustic tune. And
yeah.
whatever.
I'm the same way. Like I've played guitar in almost every band I've ever been in. I played bass in a couple of bands, never the drums. But now that I don't play in a band anymore, I kind of just go back and forth. Like I'll play my electric guitar for a while and really enjoy that, and then I'll dust off the bass after a while and like get into bass for a few months or whatever. And then it's just back and forth. I don't know, why, like the way I'm feeling, but I really enjoy the feeling of playing bass. There's just something, I don't know. It's going to sound so cheesy, but like the only word I can think of, and this is so corny, is like tribal. Like tribal. I don't know, like soulful. Like
I know what you mean.
It resonates more.
Well, it's a rhythm instrument.
Yes.
I mean, you can, like with a guitar, you're making melody. With a bass, you can make melody, but you can also make these really, use the word intricate again, intricate like rhythm patterns and like bass lines that you could play by yourself and it's fine. Like I really don't like playing guitar by myself. It just feels empty, like it's missing something, like real flat. Same thing with playing drums. I do not like playing drums by myself. I'll do it more just for exercise and kind of like practice, training. But I don't really I can't sit and play drums for like an hour. I could play bass for like hours.
When I was a kid, I got my first drum kit. I was probably 16 or so. And I remember drumming to Nirvana, Nevermind. That was like my drum practicing album. And I had a really shitty boom box with like a headphone out.
Yeah.
And I had headphones. The problem is I had wood floors in my bedroom, so it would skip. Like the CD would skip if I drummed too hard. So I'd either try to play really light, or if I was really wanting to like rock out, it would skip all the time.
Put it on that dresser, bro.
Yeah, or put a towel underneath it or something. I wasn't that smart. But I remember, this is so cringe.
DIY anti-skip, a towel.
I remember like getting into playing drums, and when it would skip, I got good at like stopping until it kicked back in and was like kind of
like knew the timing.
Yeah, like the timing of the skip.
Yeah,
like
hip hop drumming.
It was weird. Yeah, it was just so white trash. Just being in the trailer home. It's bad.
Yeah,
bad.
Do you ever like pick up a guitar, like particularly an electric guitar now, and play it, and you're like, man, I need like way smaller fingers.
Yeah.
This shit is tiny.
Yeah, it's way tiny. It's like, I mean, I write and record all the bumpers. That's pretty much all I do anymore, music wise. Like I write and record all the bumpers for the show, and they're like, little like 30-second, 15-second little pieces. And when I play guitar, yeah, it's like I'm just strumming these chords. I'm like, I should probably do more lead stuff.
It feels like you're playing on a toothpick after you play bass for a while.
It feels like you're playing a toy.
Yeah.
Like, like those shitty kids, like toy acoustics have those like plastic pegs.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I'm playing. Like when I play guitar, I'm like, oh, okay.
You also have to like focus on like not like fretting too hard. Yep. You like pull everything like super sharp.
Right.
Or like just deadening notes.
So you've been all over the world with Red City Radio, and we knew Garrett, and you probably know all the guys. I'm guessing this is our first time to actually officially meet. I think we might have said hi to each other once or twice. But what are your favorite things about touring with this band? Because you guys tour quite a bit, play with some awesome bands, you play festivals, and I'm not a big traveler. I'm not a world traveler. I've never been out of the country.
Oh, okay.
What are some of your favorite places to go, or like your experiences that you have when you're on the road?
Well, a lot of people ask me sort of just, what are my favorite places we've been. My kind of go-to response in like the short answer is like, well, I'm most fond of the places that we do best.
Right.
Which is super unrelated to like what that place has to offer in terms of culture or the city. But we do get to see some pretty cool things. I absolutely feel fortunate that the only reason I've been able to see a lot of the places in the world is because of this band, and we've seen some really cool things and got to do some touristy stuff. I wish we could do more of that. Mm-hmm. There was a tour that we've been to Europe and the UK 8 different times. There was a tour that we did over there a few years ago that we did 32 shows in 31 days.
Jesus.
Wow.
But
so there's not a lot of time to go exploring.
Yeah, exactly. Because every day is filled with a good amount of driving. I mean, you're going to drive 3 to 4 hours on the short end and 6+ hours on a good amount of the shows.
Load in, sound check, and then wait around for...
Yeah, and that's also what's funny about that. People don't think about those sort of logistics. They think like, I'll say this as a disclaimer. It is a fucking cool job, right?
Right, yeah.
But it is a job. And we're going to get up every day and get on the road by maybe 10, check out the hotel, get on the road at 10, spend however many hours in the van to sort of almost always kind of race right in at load in.
Yeah.
We'll get there, load everything in. We're touring with like one crew person. So we load in that and merchandise, get everything set up, sound check. By that point, it's, time for some dinner. Mm-hmm. Then its doors are open, and then whatever point in that tour, whether we're the headliner or one of the openers, we will, play our show, and then the show wraps up around midnight or 1, and we load everything out, and we get to the hotel at 1 or 2 in the morning, and we go to sleep, and we get up, and we do that all over again. So it's funny when we will go out and spend a few weeks on the road and get back, and the thing I hear the most often from people is like, oh man, how was your vacation?
That's not a vacation.
Well, I saw the van, I saw the lobby of the hotel, I saw my room, and then I saw the green room of the venue we played in.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
So most of the cities that, we see from the inside of a van or the inside of a club, but since we've been doing this long enough, fortunately, we have been able to, we've seen the Eiffel Tower in Paris, we've gotten to go see some really cool shit, some scenic views in Switzerland, and we've been to Amsterdam several times, so we've gotten to go, through and be a tourist and, and all of those things. So, I mean, we get to do some fun shit too. But just not maybe as much as we'd like to, but, I love going, we have a great time here in the States. We love Chicago is a major market for us. Denver, New York City, obviously. We always have great shows in Seattle, LA, San Francisco, Boston. Really just like kind of major markets are always super fun for us. And then Germany is really good for us overseas.
Yeah, I've noticed that like on your Instagram.
Is that where at the Großrock Festival?
Großrock is actually in Belgium.
Okay.
But people travel from all over Western Europe and beyond.
Every time you guys play Großrock and I see pictures, I'm like, fuck, that's so many goddamn people.
Yeah, it's super sick. That is one of the coolest festivals. And there are a lot of, because Belgium is geographically super close to Germany, there are a lot of Germans there also. I don't know. We've seen some cool shit. We're about to go to Australia for the first time.
What?
And, I'm probably preemptively announcing that, but we're going to be announcing dates on that pretty soon. And we just sort of teased a Japan tour that's going to be around that.
I was just about to ask if you guys are ever going to do Japan.
So we'll be doing, looks like kind of in the February, maybe into March. I'll have to look at the itinerary.
Dude, that'll be a trip, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's one of the places, again, I've never been out of the country. I have a desire to, but not just like some burning passion to like see the world. But when I see pictures or video from Japan, I'm always like, if there was a place I would want to go out of the United States, it might be Japan, just because
your
so
cyberpunk
different.
shit. Like it looks to me like fucking Blade Runner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it's
like,
so different. Like,
it's got to be wildly different than
like you
anywhere.
go to Germany. Like I get there are like beautiful historic things in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
You go other places in the world. And, I know there's obviously like beautiful nature around the world, but like Japan, it's just like the people, the architecture, the lights, the culture. Like I'm into like video games and shit. So it's like all that nerd shit and the weird food and just so many people. And of course,
Yeah.
yes, the beautiful neon lights everywhere.
For me, it's the juxtaposition of big city technocrat, the technology advancements, but also you have like the villages and like the very quaint historic areas. Like, I mean, growing up, I had a fascination with Japan as a little fat kid. I wanted to be like a samurai or something.
Sumo wrestler, we get it.
Yeah, sumo wrestler. But no, like I was like way into like martial arts movies, anything that was like Japanese based, I fucking loved. And that's one place I would really like to go before I kick the old bucket.
Better go soon.
Yeah, I know, right?
It is super fascinating. I'm definitely excited just for the sake of like going somewhere that's super different.
Yeah.
We went to Russia in 2015. And we've been to Europe a bunch, but primarily kind of the Western.
Was Russia
part.
scary?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Pretty intimidating, I guess I would say. The shows were very cool, but I don't know. There's definitely, and this was 2015, so this was like a pre-Trump era Russia. Not that it's maybe much different now, but
they might like you more now.
The the older generation is certainly still like super bummed about the Cold War. You can tell there's like some residual like the moment you walk into a room, it's like
just the look on their faces.
Yeah, just like get the fuck out off my train or whatever. You just get these like super pissed like villain looking older gentlemen just fucking staring at you, whatever.
With that cold gaze, just cold, ice cold.
But like the kids are like the younger generation, I guess. The people at the shows, they were super cool. I'll say this, like for me, the best part about traveling isn't so much like the places we get to see, which is a really cool element of travel, but it's really just the people and sort of like listening to their perspectives as, a human being like living in this part of the world or what their culture and, sort of just society is like and what their expectations for, things like.
Yeah. And it's got to feel awesome to go to a different country and someone is a fan of your band.
Oh, totally.
I get a hard on when I go to the speakeasy and somebody's like, hey, I like your podcast. I'm like, oh, some validation.
Yeah, totally.
But in Russia or Japan, like, holy crap.
It would be weird to stand on stage and sing a song and have like hundreds of kids like singing along to your shit. And like, what the fuck?
That's actually amazing. An interesting point because, I do play in a punk rock band. So, I mean, the genre itself is sort of like, we're not some top 40 act. So the average music listener is probably like, what even is punk rock? And what's your band again? And, I mean, people will be like, oh, I'll tell my, my buddy about it, or I'll tell my kids about it. We'll kind of help you, build this thing into, whatever. It's like, people will ask me like, because everyone knows somebody in a band, right? And it's usually some dude who just kind of does it like as whatever level hobby or whatever. And, we've been fortunate to go a little beyond that, but they'll say things like, well, when do you think you're going to make it? Which is like such a subjective question.
Absolutely.
And I don't even know how to answer it without like sounding insulted. Not because I am, I guess, very super insulted, but like in my mind, I think like, well, we just got back from Europe for the 8th time where we had, 300 people in packed clubs every night singing words to songs that we wrote. Like, I don't know. Does that count?
Yeah. Like 13-year-old, they were like, that's fucking making it. That's like that.
I feel like it's like like we feel pretty fucking lucky to be able to have that. So I don't really know what making it is by their like.
Yeah. Well, it's like MTV. How old am I? MTV. Like, you know
what I mean? It's like getting your
Sure.
video on VH1, right?
It's like having your picture at the top of the Spotify artists you should follow or something at this point. But it's like, make it where exactly? Like, we're making it. We're making it.
I think,
it feels that way. So
I think most people have an invalid concept of what it means to be a musician on a professional level. Like, you don't make money. Like, even like the high ups, like it takes a lot for them to make money just because you get fucked hard. And now I think with streaming services, it's even, they keep saying that it's back in the artist's hands to make money, but the streaming services screw you, I think, more than like labels, right?
I have an interesting take on that. Do I think that like the royalties in streaming should be higher? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Do I hope that that'll balance out somehow? Maybe they'll find tiering systems on like subscription based whatever. I mean, sure. I don't know enough maybe of all the intricate shit, variables to suggest how to fix that. But
You got to get Red City Radio on Tidal.
You know,
Yes.
but I will
you've
say
made
this. You know, I don't ever take the position of like, oh, we're these starving artists, or like, I mean, because like I'll be forward about it. We do get paid, and we make reasonably good money doing this,
or else you wouldn't be going back.
Yeah. So like, you know, it's like any business. Of course, we go out there, we make X amount of dollars on the gross from the shows we play, and the guarantees that were paid by the clubs, and you know, of course, the variable income of selling merchandise, and then
Right.
you know, but then we have the cost of the merchandise we sold, and we had to get to the shows, and you know, we have a van and all these other things. But at the end of every sort of work period or tour, excuse me, we do, you know, go back and pay our bills, and everybody gets paid, so, you know, a reasonable amount of money.
You're a working musician.
Exactly.
And you're working to make money.
So it's, you know, it's definitely not a poor me kind of thing. I mean, to what you said, yeah, you will play in bands for a very long time, or as a musician, and likely not make any money at all. And that's just the reality. But
your face can be on magazines and people, you know what I mean?
that is no different than any business you start, you know? So that's important, that I think people want, you know, I mean, I don't want to take away from the creative outlet, you know, of playing music, because that is obviously the center point in all art. But, you know, if you want to make a living at doing it, you just got to think of it as a business. You know, you do have to eventually figure out how to monetize that. When it comes to streaming, yeah, the royalties are significantly less than when people were buying physical records. But here's the thing. Think of a record that you loved in the late 90s, early 2000s, at the end of that era where people spent a shitload of money on physical records. Think of any artist that went platinum, which is well beyond the realm of what we're doing. They made a shitload of money then, right? And then maybe went into some realm of irrelevance like soon after that, likely.
Like Creed.
Unless they just continued to be whatever, these super pop stars that, you know, maintain that throughout their career, but most of them don't. But think of those bands now. Used to be, they sold 1 million copies and they got that one sum of money, and then they either figured out how to make that last or they didn't, and they try to figure out what it is they're doing later and how to spend or waste or, you know, invest this money. Now, those artists are getting perpetual income from streaming.
I've never thought about it that way.
True.
And they will get that, you know, conceivably until the end of time, unless somehow, you know, consuming music becomes different in some different format.
They'll get a $23 check in the mail every now and then.
So the point that I'm making of it is that, yes, it's smaller, but it is perpetual.
I've never thought about it that way. Like Nelly probably makes more now than he did in like 2006, the whole year.
Well, he's certainly, and he's certainly getting like a sum of money every month from these royalties for
I mean, you
music.
got to think about like jukeboxes as well. That's another thing too. Like AMI pays artists for that shit too.
But I'll say this, like, you know, and there, you know, it gets a lot more complicated when it comes to like who owns the record, who paid for it, the label, blah, blah, blah. But we put out that 5-song EP in 2009. We own that outright. We still get a few $100 every month from that. And the most of that is from streaming. Now, obviously, that's not going to, nobody's retiring off that.
Right. But something.
But that's almost 10 years ago.
Something to put in the old band fund.
And so, like, to me, if somebody our level is making a few $100 a month off of a 10-year-old release that had 5 songs off of it, there is money to be made in streaming. There really just is.
Like, how many of those songs do you guys even play live anymore?
I mean, like maybe one every couple of tours, you know?
Right.
So that's got to tell you that the newer records with more songs on them are tracking, you know, more plays. And
or think like an artist like a Bruno Mars or a Katy Perry, they've got to be making bank just off their Spotify plays. Like I know they say, it's a 0.1% of a cent or whatever, but it's like,
if you're getting billions of plays,
you're getting millions upon millions of listens.
Yeah, absolutely, over and over again. And what I'm seeing a lot of bands doing, which is super smart, they're doing sort of alternate versions of, like, you know, songs. Like a big band example would be the band Rise Against. You know, they just recently did an acoustic EP that had songs that they've previously recorded as, you know, their regular sort of rock band or whatever. And that's just generating more listens.
Yeah. Or they'll do like the sessions, like the Peel sessions, Spotify sessions, whatever sessions, just to get those releases out there.
And a lot of bands our size can easily just do that and record it on their own dime, and it doesn't have to be a label release. It can be digital only, and that can generate plays that's only going to bring in, you know, another stream of revenue, you know. So I don't know. I think it's a valid point to say, hey, you know what? Streaming could and should be more in terms of the royalty amount. But I think that it's just such a, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I think if we as bands all look at it like well,
Metallica with Napster.
Yeah. Well, let's fight it till the end. It's like, well, let's figure out how to make this work for us financially. And I you know, that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah,
so.
that's so refreshing to hear, because you always hear the doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you know, the headline, the headline grabbing little news blurbs or whatever. But yeah, that totally, I've never thought about the slow trickle versus the, hey, you have one number one hit or you have an album that's popular, you get all this money, but guess what? It takes a shitload of money to sustain that new lifestyle that you get used to. It's
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, now you just get a little bit, and there's a lot of things people don't think about, like commercials, TV shows, like movies, like all kinds of stuff, and like, I don't think a band, whether they're huge, like let's say Against Me, like, do you think that they're bankrolling off their merch at shows? A lot of times people are like, no, bands are just going to make money on touring. But like, I saw Against Me last time they came through. Their merch booth had some cool shit, but it wasn't like it was like a sea of people trying to buy T-shirts.
They make pretty good money.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know what they actually make, but I am in the business, as you know, otherwise. And I do know roughly kind of what bands their size are making,
they do all right.
And they're making a pretty respectable living. I mean, we've been out with, and I won't name names, but we've definitely been out with, bigger sized bands, and they are absolutely doing, in a $500-600 cap club scenario, $4,000-6,000 in merchandise most nights, if you're a headliner in that scenario.
Damn.
And and a band like us can honestly go out and it's not uncommon for us to we went out with our friends in the Lawrence Arms earlier this year after we put out an EP, and those guys were kind enough to bring us out, and they have been really supportive of our band, and we were direct support for them, which puts us in a great slot right before them as a headliner. And we were playing to packed medium-sized clubs every night. I mean, it was pretty uncommon for us as a support band on that tour to sell under $1,000 in merchandise.
Not bad.
Now, granted, $1,000 tonight is not the same as $1,000 tomorrow, because it depends on what you're selling and what your margin of profit is on that. And this is probably boring every average
I think
musician.
It's super interesting. Yeah,
but like for instance, like a $20 shirt might cost a band $6 to make, but the $20 piece of vinyl would cost them $11 to get wholesale from the record. So or the label. So. It's hard to say what of that is really generating bottom line profit, but I mean, I just don't think that it's really useful to have this sort of poor me mentality when it comes to working bands. Like, you just got to get out there and make it work for you. You need to have cool shit when you go out on tour. If you're bringing the same shirts that people have already seen and bought, you're blowing it. If you're not continuing to put out some new music, you're kind of blowing it. If you're not doing the right things, utilizing social media to spread your music and sort of your message, then you're really just not utilizing all the tools in front of you.
Well, is there somebody in the band or somebody outside of the band that helps you guys with that stuff? Like, because I've never been in a successful band, even by any stretch of the word. But I've always been the guy in the band that like designed the T-shirts and made sure that got done and ordered the stickers and, made the flyers and all that shit, ran the social media. Do you guys do you guys handle that, or do you have somebody that does it, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, it's a little of both, or it's about to be sort of growing into. We are about to take on proper management, but we are currently and always have been self-managed.
Yeah.
Everybody in this band is previously the front man from our previous bands, so we all sort of have that you were talking about, where we have that initiative thing. That's
great, man, and that's pretty rare.
Yeah,
because
really
every
is.
band I've ever been in, nobody wanted to do it.
Well, we're also lucky in that, like, two of the guys in our band, Dallas, our drummer, and Ryan, our guitar player who lives in San Diego, are both graphic designers.
That's a big help.
And Ryan is also, he went to school for web design as well. So that's super useful to have in the band. I mean, we still do hire out art. When we find a very cool artist that we love the shit they do, we hire them to do our T-shirt designs. We don't try to keep it all in-house in an effort to save money. We want to put out shit that's cool.
It's like you just said, if you don't have a different T-shirt you can't have the same design. Like, you can tell when somebody like keeps going back to the well of artists, like, well, that just looks like a variation of the shirt we got last time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's like the same artist making the same sort of themed thing or whatever. But So that's cool. And you know, Josh, you know this, but for anyone listening, and maybe this is news to you, I work as a booking agent also in the music business. So I book our band currently. So that helps tremendously to kind of keep that in-house at the moment. And so I don't know, we're a pretty self-sustaining
That's great.
kind of thing at the moment. So.
And you guys got some shows coming. You're doing is it just October tour, like leading up to Fest, or do you have stuff going on after Fest?
It's actually like a 2-part thing starting next week. So I'm not sure when this comes out.
This will drop Friday.
Friday. Okay. So next week. Yeah. So that once this is out, we'll be leaving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our first show is on the 14th in Chicago.
Perfect timing. Look at that.
Right?
Yeah.
A little plug and
let's
opportunity
get
here.
So it starts in Chicago.
Yep, starts Chicago. We're going to do, as a headliner, we're taking out a couple Toronto-based bands, a band called Pew Pew Pew, and a band called the Penske File. We'll be hitting Chicago, Cleveland, New York, Garwood, New Jersey, Boston, Philly, Baltimore, Atlanta as that package, headlining those shows. And then we're going to go down to Fest in Gainesville, Florida, and Pre-Fest before that in Tampa. And I think we're doing like 2 proper club shows, and I think there's going to be soon to be announced. We're going to do a little acoustic thing that should be cool, and there might be even something else popping in there. I'm not sure, but
awesome. Then
we're going to be cruising back. I think we're home for 5 days, and then around the top of November, I think it's on the 5th or the 6th, we will fly into San Diego, and we'll start another headliner with a couple other bands. A band called Typesetter. And a band called Cali Massey, both from Chicago.
Cool. And if our listener wants to look up your band, what's the best way to do so?
Check it out, redcityradio.net. You can actually buy all the tickets through there, and you can listen to music, videos, all that sort of shit, all the pertinent info. But you can check us out.
.net.
That's right.
.net. That's important.
.net.
Because somebody bought the fucking .com. So it's Red City Radio.
On it?
Yeah, they are. They
Fuckers.
were. Yeah. redcityradio.net. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, all of those.
Have you guys hit them up to like, hey, can we get this fucking domain name?
No, we just .netted it.
Yeah, fuck it. Old school.
Fuck it. Yeah, that's punk, dude.
Yeah.
I don't need your .com. The name of the next album.
And you do the Atomic Music, right?
Yeah.
The booking?
It's Atomic Music Group. It's an LA-based agency. Well, we have offices in Nashville and Austin as well, but...
Is that who you're doing the Smoking Popes show through? Okay.
Yeah. So I represent currently 11 different bands, mostly in the punk rock realm, but in addition to Red City Radio, I work with that band Smoking Popes.
Mm-hmm.
Got, that band Typesetter is another that I work with,
okay.
but I work with a band called Flatfoot 56, another Chicago sort of kind of a legacy band at this point in the punk world, 88 Fingers Louie.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I work with a Fat Records band out of San Francisco, Get Dead. I got a band from Rochester, New York called Such Gold. You guys might have seen them around here, a band from Albuquerque called Russian Girlfriends.
Yeah.
And then I just picked up a really cool, kind of like a Texas country band from Fort Worth. But they're kind of like a Texas kind of alt country meets kind of Tejano meets like cowpunk.
Interesting.
Weird.
They're called Vandaliers. And that band, they just signed to Bloodshot Records. They got a new record coming out next year. So I might be forgetting somebody in there. I'm going to feel like a dick.
That's okay.
Somebody's going to be like, yeah, dude, you did not
just tweet
plug
it
my
and
band.
add us in it, and we'll retweet it.
Yeah.
Say, sorry, didn't mean to leave you out.
But
it's Kiss. It's Kiss.
fuck, Kiss. Sorry,
it.
Kiss.
So, okay, we got to wrap up soon, but in closing, I've noticed something recently. So I drive from Bethany, where Boy Studio is located, to Edmond every day for work. It's a good little drive. I'm driving with the traffic both ways. And I drive a small little hatchback car, and I'm not a bad driver at all. In fact, most people would say that I'm a pretty good, responsible, aggressive without being a dick driver. Like when I get on the highway or the turnpike. Assertive.
Yeah.
I get on there, I do my thing. I'm not a jerk. I use my signal. I've been noticing in the last month or so, I've been getting flipped off a lot. Like a lot.
Now,
to the
are
point
these-
where I feel like it's a Truman Show thing.
Are the drivers male or female?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both.
And you don't think that so you're saying that nothing has changed in terms of your
No,
driving.
I'm a great driver. I keep up with traffic. I don't go crazy fast. I don't, stay in the left lane
You're
when
not
I'm going too
cutting
slow.
people off?
Never.
So these people are just out of the blue driving, I'm assuming, on your side or the passenger side to give you the bird.
Usually
a little bit of both.
Well, I stay in the right lane because I'm not a speed demon. So I get on the highway.
They want you to see it through your window.
Yeah, they're going around me in the fast lane and like giving me the finger. And I wouldn't bring this up if it didn't happen. No joke. In the last 2 months, 25 times.
What?
Wow.
20. I'm
So
like,
you're
is there
doing
a sign
something.
on my car? Like, did somebody jokingly slap a sticker that says like, please flip me off? Or
Yeah, you didn't just like recently put on like a Bernie Sanders sticker or something,
no,
you know, like
or Trump.
An anti-Trump.
You know? Yeah.
Well, back in the day,
Trump
you had
would not get you in much trouble probably on the roads in Oklahoma.
That's
I don't
true.
think,
No.
Yeah. No Bernie. None of that. I mean, I have a few stickers on the back of my car,
but
but
nothing that would
Yeah.
warrant being flipped off. Like back in the day, you had the no W on the back.
oh
of
yeah,
your-
that was cool.
living in Texas. That was probably really cool.
I was real into no effects at the time, so you know,
Nice.
I
War on
drank the Kool-Aid,
errorism.
Yeah, totally, dude. Not my president.
Okay, so
I bought that shirt at a Warped Tour one year.
Oh.
The George W. Bush.
was that
not my
the
president.
homeboy? The homeboy design?
No, it kind of looked like the Obey thing.
Okay.
Kind of.
Do you
Anyways,
remember that fucking thing that Jesus is my home?
Oh, yeah.
boy. Anyways, so
I bought the shirt though, real quick. I bought the shirt. I was seeing No Effects at Warped Tour. I was fucking stoked. You know,
was it at the Rock Against Bush booth?
Yes.
Yep.
And I bought the shirt. Lived in the drawer. Never wore it.
Never put
'Cause
it
I was a
on.
wimp. I was like, no, I'm not wearing that, man. I don't get my ass kicked by some hillbilly in Oklahoma. It was cool when you were down in, the Big D, Dallas.
So
but
you're doing nothing to
Nothing.
warrant that many flip-offs.
not a thing.
That takes a lot of balls to flip someone off.
Do you flip?
No.
Do you flip?
I mean, I have, but I don't say to say that I do would require some level of frequency that I think I'm not.
I do this one
Yes,
on a audio podcast. It's not. I do the.
Oh, the throw the
I'll
hands
just
up.
throw the hands up.
Yeah.
They're not going to see it, but I don't flip off. Sometimes I'll flash lights. Or I curse to myself. You say all the things you will never say in public.
Of course. Or with somebody else in the car.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, we don't have time for any in-depth political discussion, but I mean, I do feel like it's worth noting that, like, I feel like day by day, people are just getting more volatile in the world today, particularly in U.S. culture.
Totally, man. It's
super
you can-
divisive.
divisive and polarized, and you can feel like the shift.
Absolutely.
Like, people didn't like Obama, and not to get political, but I'm glad you brought that up. Like, some people did not like Obama, but it seemed like before we were in this Trump age that people were a little more civil. I mean, people have always been dicks, and people have always flipped each other off on the highway.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's like
Everyone's
cool
on
now
edge.
or it's cool to be shitty to the other side.
Yeah, it's definitely been normalized.
Normalized.
Yeah. Not even. Yeah. It's basically like, you just unlocked the door and said, okay, you can come in and out of the store whenever you want, and it's like people free to be total fucking dicks and free to spout the things that society told you, hey man, we don't talk like that anymore. We don't say those things. And now you just got these rednecks and like lifted trucks with rebel flags tearing down highways, yelling the N-word out windows, and they think it's totally fine. Freedom of speech, man.
But when our president is at a press conference and makes fun of the people in the press conference, oh no, you don't think. Like I saw one last week where he was telling a reporter, to call, I don't hate everything Trump does. I think he's gross, and I did not vote for him. I would never vote for him. But I'm not one of those people, even as more of a liberal kind of guy. I don't automatically hate every single thing I hear about
You want to
him.
give a fair shake at something,
Yes,
something at
I'm
first.
reasonable, and I do believe, the numbers don't lie. There are some things that this administration are doing correct. Now, that's overshadowed by all the bullshit and the grossness and the just terrible, just I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Just the ugliness of all of it.
Absolutely.
But unemployment, things like that. I know that had a lot to do with Obama too, but there are some things that are going all right. I'm not all doom and gloom.
Yeah. It's worth noting that when they do happen for sure. But it really is just, I say this a lot, because getting into, and I've been guilty of it, but getting into a political debate with somebody, particularly when, you sort of get angry and use, I don't know, just when people are rude to each other and yelling and screaming, that shit gets, nobody's changing their mind. But, when you have a discussion, or at least I have, and you decide, I'm not going to go down that road. Mm-hmm. Let's not talk about the political things we disagree on, but shouldn't we hold our president to a higher standard just in terms of normal, being a good human being standards?
Yes.
And that's really where I've started to get to. It's forget it. We're always going to disagree on these few political little topics, but shouldn't we at least hold him to a standard, the same standards of common decency that we expect from our elementary school kids,
or
like,
from a McDonald's employee.
Sure,
you know,
I mean, you
You're a
shouldn't just
public servant.
You shouldn't just speak down to somebody, because your followers think it's funny for you to be a dickhead. Like, I don't understand it.
Well, that's the other thing. It's starting to get into this like Pepe the Frog, Proud Boy like culture where it's like it's funny to be really rude to somebody, and it's like, no, like when I was in school and I was in debate class, that would have been the furthest thing from that. It's just be like, no more questions. You talked for 10 minutes. No, next, and it's just like, be civil, be reasonable, be civil. I can disagree with somebody on religion, politics, whatever, but I can sit down and have a conversation like two intelligent human beings. And I just feel like there's this lack of it. Intelligence or civility or something like that. It sucks, man.
If I had to guess, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't really know what I would hypothesize otherwise. To back to your sort of fingers in the air when you're driving, but I feel like that's got to be part of it. People are just like shittier somehow right now, and everybody just needs to learn to be a little more of a fucking nice human being.
Well, do you think the pendulum will swing back the other way, or do you think
I think it has to?
It always does.
It always does. So,
each president, and it goes back and forth. I'm hoping this time the pendulum, instead of swinging all the way back, it'll just like stop in the middle and just kind of be like, hey, let's hear both sides out. We've done it this way, we've done it that way, and neither side has worked out. We should all meet somewhere in the center and kind of discuss it,
rationally
and politely with one another. Like, we don't have to agree on everything. So we agreed on everything, we would get nowhere. We have to meet in the middle and understand each other's, belief systems and how they would like society to work. I just think this arguing amongst ourselves over things that really in the end don't really matter. But the thing, like you said, the thing that does matter is the way we treat each other. And if we can't treat each other with even the minuscule amount of respect, our society's doomed.
Well, man, I have long hair. I'm kind of a liberal guy. I'm kind of animated. Like I got called a fag in high school because I like to draw and play guitar, and because I didn't play football and the things I did when I was younger, and because I was friends with like girls and I didn't just treat them like pieces of meat, But I'll tell you what, these days, if I see like a hillbilly dude my age, and I'm using that term loosely, that probably sounds hateful, but if I see like a red hat, I'm just like, oh boy, like,
it's frightening.
Something's going to go down. They're going to say something. They're going to, do something.
And doesn't it bum you out that like if you simply call somebody out for using really super foul, like oppressive language, that suddenly you're some sort of like,
you're encroaching on their freedom.
Or snowflake.
Or you're like somehow you're too PC. I don't understand that. Like, it shouldn't be too PC to expect somebody not to use like oppressive language.
Yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, man, I will say, and see, this is just me being in the middle, I guess, but like, I do kind of get sick of some of the PC.
I mean, I get that too. But like, I don't think it's too PC to say, hey, this sort of behavior is, I don't know, it makes women feel, victimized or whatever the case may be. And when you bring things up like that, it's like suddenly you're the one creating the issue rather than trying to maybe take steps to solve.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man.
It's tough.
It's a tough way to end an episode, I'll tell you that much.
Right. Well, how about this? Let's everyone stop being such dicks. Let's all be a little more kind to each other.
Yeah, sit down, have a great conversation like we've just had this last hour and some change, and get out there and play some music for people.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. That's really all you got to do.
Oh, real quick, we didn't plug the Smoking Popes show.
November 16th at the Blue Note. Smoking Popes, for me, one of the most fucking iconic, you could say punk rock, I guess, bands. They're fantastic. It's a great show. How much is the show?
I think we got it at $10. It might be 12.
That is cheap AF.
Not bad. Reasonable.
Yep.
Even in this current presidential situation.
Even then. So
that'll be good times.
So yeah, let's all go out there. You guys gonna be there?
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
I can't say yes, but I'll try.
I'll be in town. So
you're not going to be there?
You will be there.
I'll be there. You'll be there. Okay. Well, hopefully we will see you then.
Hell yeah.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming by, man.
A lot of fun. Thanks.
Bye.